All right, guys, I am probably going to say something that's going to tick a lot of you guys off, but it needs to be said. The reason that your clothing brand looks like every single other clothing brand is because you're stealing from the same places that everybody else is stealing from. You're looking on Pinterest and you're going and scrolling and saving the same photos for inspo that every other brand owner is saving, right? Your Pinterest feed looks like 100 other people's Pinterest feed that morning, and you guys all save the same pictures for graphics or for posters or for your products that you want to make, and then you're all making the same products, and then you fail. But today I'm going to be sharing with you guys exactly how I curate references and unique shit for my brand, Tame Psychotic. And honestly, a lot of brand owners are going to see this and get pissed off at me for sharing it, simply just because it took us years to figure this shit out, all right? There's no YouTube videos on the internet to tell you how to do it. You just have to figure it out through time. But I have put together a system for you guys to basically get ahead of all of the other brand owners and to have a component within your design process that nobody else has, right? That very few, only the people at the top, right? That are making unique shit, that's selling, that's actually innovating the market and innovating their space and bringing new ideas to their space. So here's the thing when it comes to designing creative, there is no new idea under the sun. All right, every idea comes from another idea. Every idea is influenced and conjured by the receiving of another idea, the viewing of another idea. So people see something, they change a little bit about it, and they make it into something new. That's how new ideas work. And Virgil really said it best here with his 3% rule, stating that basically if you want to make something new, you need to find something you like, tweak it by 3%, and refresh it as something that is new and is unique and is something that has proof of concept from the past, right? Something that was created that people enjoyed, so that you know it's good, that's tweaked a little bit to make it fresh. That is essentially how new ideas are born. Every single big brand that you guys see on social media or on the internet is doing this. Every artist that you see is doing this, whether it's in music or drawing or clothing or fashion or dancing, whatever it is, everything is referenced from a piece of art from the past. So essentially, if you are an artist, you are stealing an idea that you have seen before. So the question is not whether or not you're stealing, it's who and where are you stealing from? And that understanding is honestly what separates the brands that come and go and then the brands that are here for a long time. So before I show you guys exactly where I pull my references for all of my creative work, I want to go over why the way that most people do it now is fundamentally broken. So most people right now will pull up Pinterest and they'll go to the search bar and they'll say clothing brand design, or they'll say apparel design, or they'll say cool designs for streetwear. And the issue is that every single brand owner is getting the same search results, right? Pinterest is like this mainstream source of creativity or inspo, right? So everybody's going to Pinterest to find these ideas. And most of them are getting very, very similar search results. So everybody's going to be pulling from the same photos. Everybody's going to be pulling graphic inspo from the same Pinterest search. Everybody's going to be pulling event inspo from the same Pinterest searches, right? So the problem here now becomes, okay, where else do we look, right? Because when everybody's pulling the same shit, then everything looks the same. All the art looks the same. All the graphics look the same. If everything looks the same, you're not unique. You're not bringing anything new to the market, which means you're not going to convert any customers at all. That's just how it works. And when it comes to graphic design specifically, everything is referential. Every graphic that is created references another graphic. They pulled inspo from another graphic. They didn't just say, oh, we'll make a logo and add this image, right? They pulled that image from somewhere. They pulled the idea for that logo from somewhere, right? They're all going to defont.com and they're going to retro fonts, or they're going to Gothic fonts, and they're all selecting one of the top 10 searches, right? So all the fonts are coming from the same place. And therein lies the issue. Everything looks the same because everybody's stealing from the same places. All right, so if everybody is taking ideas from the same places, then where should you go to get the fresh ideas? Where should you go to pull the ideas that are going to produce something unique? Well, most people will say, oh, well, the social media algorithms are going to give me more stuff that I like according to what I've liked in the past. But the problem is that most of you guys who are using this curation tactic are actually just consuming. All right, that's not curation, that's consumption. And basically, looking at more stuff on social media is going to give you more of just what everybody else fucks with, right? What everybody else is doing, all the videos on Instagram that'll pop up of like clothing brands and stuff. You're taking inspo from the people who are already in the field. If you are going in and you're taking inspo from brands that are doing well right now and you try and reference that, then you are going to get called out for copying them. All right, and you don't want to copy people, all right? You want to take ideas from places no one else has seen, tweak them, and then present them with a refreshed look and a refreshed feel. And then nobody can say, oh, well, this brand did it, or this brand did it, or you're copying this brand, all right? I've been through that. You don't want that. What you want is a unique, fresh idea that nobody has seen. So you can't pull inspo from social media. So let's get into where I like to pull inspo and how I like to reference things to provide something fresh and unique that nobody's seen. So I'm going to start with my graphic design hires. I have hired 2 full-time graphic designers in my time with my brand. And the first graphic designer that I hired, I did not hire him because he was really good with tech packs. He was actually really shitty with tech packs, and he was really shitty with call sheets, which is why he no longer works with us, one of the many reasons. But beyond that, the reason that I hired him is because he spent a lot of time around vintage clothing. He had touched a lot of garments throughout the period of his career, which means that he's had access to resources of ideas that I have never had access to, nor do I currently have access to. So I hired him for that reason. The second graphic designer that I hired is actually not someone that's presented as a graphic designer. Yes, he does work for some major fashion houses, and he's honestly a crazy hire if I'm being completely transparent. No glaze. He is actually not a full-time graphic designer. Part of what he does is he creates collections of physical media, meaning like handbills, posters, magazines, newspapers, pieces of physical media that have never been posted online. So with his involvement in the curation of those books, he's going to have a lot of access to images, compositions, artwork that has never been scanned in and put on the internet, right? So more than likely, no one's really going to see it except for the few people that are really invested in collecting that physical media. All right, so the person I hired has access to a lot of imagery and a lot of graphic elements that I just do not have access to, and that is what makes him a good designer. It is not about their proficiency with Photoshop, and yes, that does go into it. The more proficient they are with Photoshop and Illustrator and softwares like that, the better the graphic designer they will be. But what makes a really good sourcer of ideas, what makes a really good thief, right, in terms of art and creation, what makes a really good thief is somebody who has access to a lot of materials that exist in your realm of inspo, right? One instance that I want to highlight to give you guys a better understanding of referential design and stealing in order to create something new would be this 50s thrashed hoodie from the brand, I believe it's called UNDSLA. Basically, what happened was this hoodie was referenced from a super old 50s hoodie that this guy found at a flea market, right? And he bought this for $1,500. And a lot of people were all up in arms about it. Oh my gosh, why would you buy a hoodie like that for $1,500? What they don't know is that he is going to take the idea from that hoodie that most people can't get because they can't pay $1,500 for a hoodie, or maybe they don't have access to it, right? And he's going to create that into a product that he's going to make lots and lots of money on, all right? That is how this game works, and that is what nobody will fucking tell you, because that's the real fucking sauce. You find an idea from some place that nobody else can get ideas, right? And then you turn it into your own shit, and then you make it. right? Half of me feels guilty for saying this because of so many brand owners struggling for years before they figure this shit out, right? But this ties back to the tradesman archetype I talked about in a video that I made on Instagram, meaning the type of clothing brand owner that is not going to go into Pinterest and save a few things with 5 minutes of scrolling, but the type of person that is obsessive with where they are finding their shit, the type of person that is so addicted to refining their craft and getting better and better and better. He's obsessive about his process. He will dig for hours on Pinterest, Cosmos, Internet Archives, whatever he needs to find that one image that's just perfect, that's rare, that nobody else has probably seen, so that he can use that image for a new idea that's going to crush. Now, in regards to where exactly I find my ideas, I'm not going to be sharing in detail the places and locations and people that I go to for these ideas out of respect for my industry. Obviously, I wouldn't want to be giving away people's trusted secrets, and I know that's a little bit of gatekeeping, but the fact of the matter is everybody's sources of inspiration are going to be different, all right? Whereas mine may be a book of handbills that were collected by a punk rock fan from the 80s, right? Yours may not have anything to do with that vibe, the punk rock vibe, right? So you wouldn't be looking for the same thing anyways. What's important to understand here is that you are referencing things also that are not on the internet, that you are referencing physical media, whether it's a vinyl cover. I've referenced multiple sick ass vinyl covers that I've just found. Another thing is photo books. Photo books are something that I collect a lot, specifically for photography within my niche, artists like Larry Clark, for example, right? So what you can do is go online or go to libraries or go to archives and look for media that exists specifically in your realm, right? In your specific space, whatever the identity for your brand is, your target customer, again, who you're selling to and what you're selling to them. Pay attention to those two things. Use those two things as a guide. If the person that you are selling to would not be interested in the photo book that you are looking through, or the movie that you're watching, or the music that you're listening to, you're not listening to the right things. And you should naturally be listening to those same things because the identity should be mostly comprised of your personal identity, right? And we go over a lot of that in Urban Unity. That's kind of what I specialize in, what I've studied for years and years now, is specifically identity curation from an authentic personal perspective. That's kind of been my thing. I hope to be a world authority on that one day, very soon, hopefully. And that actually itself is specifically what I teach that I believe nobody else on the internet teaches, which I'm very proud of. We put together a really, really cool project that has helped a shit ton of people with this specific process. I'm super proud of what we've built. We have a great team behind it, a great curriculum behind it, great data behind it, 2 years of data at this point, and it is one of those things that I can just offer to the world that nobody else can or has yet, right? Which is, again, what goes back into this whole idea that we're talking about, is creating something new that's never been seen before, that's refreshed, right? So if you guys are interested in potentially joining us in Urban Unity, we take on a few spots every month. The link for the application is in the description of this video if that is something you'd be interested in. Again, I don't work with many people. If your response is really shit, if your application looks like shit, I'm going to probably toss it away. I get a lot of applications every month and we don't take many people on, so be thorough with it. That's all I can tell you. But let's get back into it. So as we mentioned before, photo books are really good. Film is another big one for me. I reference a lot of films just because I love movies in general. I probably watch 5 movies at least a week. I fucking love movies. It gives me so much inspiration for campaigns, for stories, for narrative. Films are a really, really great reference point for content specifically. But a lot of my inspiration for the clothing that I make, as far as like the actual garments, how they fit, how they look, what they're made of, are referenced from clothing in movies as well. So I would definitely start consuming movies intentionally so that you can ensure that you're getting ideas from movies, right? So we talked about music, we talked about photos, specifically within photo books, physical media. And the last place I'll suggest that you look for inspiration is actually on the racks in person, right? I think a lot of brand owners, myself included, like to spend a lot less time shopping and a lot more time creating, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But if you are not consuming to a degree, then you're not going to get inspo, because inspo has to come from something. So I would highly suggest shopping at very niche spots that are specifically in your niche, whatever is going to suit your target demographic, so that you can get ideas for physical elements in your garments by experiencing them in a physical way. So let's talk about how to find your own curation sources in specific. So now that we've talked about the different forms of media that you can reference, I want to talk about specifically how to pick that media, how to pick the media that you are going to reference, because there's a shit ton of it out there. There's a million different types of photographers. There's a million different genres of art, a million different genres of movies, a million different genres of photos, of like music. Everything is so broad. So you have to really pinpoint exactly where you are going to pull from. So first, you need to go back to your DNA, all right? Your brand's DNA. What culture, what subculture does your brand pull ideas from, right? What type of person does your brand pull ideas from? What type of music, right? This is going to go into a lot of the personal stuff that I was talking about before. A lot of this should be a product of your taste, right? Your own consumption, your own preferences. But we'll start with subculture, all right? What category of subculture does your brand pull inspo from? What era does your brand pull inspo from, right? First, take note of those things and then start hunting only in that subculture. So if your brand is rooted in 90s skate culture, then you're not going to be digging through military surplus stores, right? You're going to be looking in places where you would find that subculture. You're going to be hitting up old skate shops. You're going to be looking for footage that was shot in the 90s of skaters. What cameras were they using? How were they filming? What type of media was it? What kind of music was paired with it, right? You're going to look at the style it was filmed in for ideas on content. And then for clothing, it's like, okay, what were they wearing, right? What was that culture presenting themselves with? Was it super long baggy jeans, or was it Converse, or was it smaller tees, or was it super baggy tees? Was it front brim hat? You need to think about these things and pull inspo from specifically that in order to pull ideas that are going to be specific to your niche and are going to appeal to your specific niche. And then you might ask, okay, well, if we know where to look, how do we know what to reference? And the answer to that is just taste. All right, the people with the best taste are the people who have consumed the most and know the difference between the good stuff and the mid stuff. That in and of itself, that taste gap is the single biggest moat that all of the successful clothing brands have. They have taste, right? And again, taste is just consumption volume, right? If you consume more, you will know more than other people what is good versus what is mid. For example, the guy that's 30 years old, that's flipped through 1,000 magazines in his day, watched 100 movies in the last year, and scrolls on Instagram every single day, is probably going to have better taste than the person who's gone on Pinterest and scrolled for 5 minutes, saved a few ideas, and called it a day. The person who has the best music taste that you always want to put on aux is typically just the person that's listened to the most music, right? They're bringing in ideas that they found that you've never discovered, which means that they have taste, and that is their secret weapon to be able to pull the good stuff, right? To pull the good references, the good ideas from whatever pool of consumption that you're in, and apply those to whatever creative project you're trying to do. So why does this matter beyond just having new cool ideas? Well, if everybody in the ecosystem of your niche that has a clothing brand, or it's making a clothing brand, is pulling ideas from the same digital pool pools that everybody else is pulling them from. If you can pull them from a different pool, then you are providing something unique to that market that the other guys aren't, because they're still using Pinterest. And the good thing about pulling inspiration where other people aren't looking is that you are essentially finding ideas that don't exist, right? At least they don't exist to most people, because most people have never seen what you've seen. And at the end of the day, it boils down to this, okay? The quality of your reference points are going to directly determine the quality of your products, all right? If your reference points are mid, they're mainstream, they're something that everybody else has seen, then your products will be mid and mainstream and something that everybody else has seen. You need to put effort into your reference points. You need to dig deep for the shit that nobody else has seen. And if you do that and you put in extra time in the development process, you are going to make dope shit. So to bring this all home, Curation is not scrolling on Pinterest and saving outfits and graphic inspo. Curation is becoming obsessed with finding the idea that nobody else has seen, for digging deeper than everybody else and finding something that has not been converted into something new, whether it's a campaign or a product, and bringing the industry something it doesn't have. When you do that, you don't have to worry about being unique, right? Because you're pulling from references that nobody else has seen. So that automatically makes you unique. So a lot of this stuff was in depth on creative, but if you guys have any interest in starting a brand, I have a video on the whole setup process, the building process. I've got a slew of videos, honestly, a fucking library at this point that you guys can go through to learn all of this stuff. I am really trying to make my YouTube channel the biggest library for knowledge on this subject on the internet, and I think I'm well on my way. I think we're at like 160K subscribers, so I'd love to hit 200 soon. And if you found any value from this video, feel free to hit the like button and the subscribe button if you would like to share the love and push this knowledge further. So thank you guys so much. I'm always in your corner with this shit. I've been through the highs, I've been through the lows. I'm gonna go through more highs and I'm gonna go through more lows, and I'm learning along the way, and my goal here is just to share as much as I possibly can to help you guys maybe skip some of the downs that I experienced. So thanks for watching this, and I will see you next week.